Hello and welcome back to this Common Lisp video. This is going to be a very quick one on expanding on what we did with macros. So in the last video this was actually our input-output stuff, and we're reading files here, and we're reading files line by line, and when we see this sort of repetition stuff, this is probably a good case for a macro. We didn't go too deep into macros, we just had a look at expanding into a macro that could take multiple items that would be a multiple equality thing. And so we can do exactly the same here with macros for reading over and looping over these lines. This isn't going to take an awful lot of time, so this is more like a bonus video this week, but I'm going to get into it. We're just going to add this onto our macros video, so you can watch along and get an idea of where we might use these macros and where and when macros might be used. So as we saw in that video, we start with def macro and we give it a name, and this is going to be read lines. It's just going to take an input stream. I think I'll call it stream rather than in, and really all we need to do is copy this and make sure we backtick that and make sure that this becomes comma stream so that it can be shown. We probably want to do this as well with Jensen. I don't have that now. Let s be Jensen. I'll put that in there. The reason that we're going to do that is we've got some variable names here that we probably don't want to leak out. So we're going to have this be s. Let's make sure that we properly escape that. So that should all work. That has compiled. So this gensim, this will create a guaranteed unique variable value that we can use. So if we were to do something that might, because we're using this macro and we pass in stream, we might, for some reason or another, pass in a value here that, I don't know, could interfere with the internal workings of our macro. So we're going to use this gensim thing to get guaranteed unique generated values, and we're going to use that to make sure that when this macro runs, it's guaranteed to be using variables and values that are not used anywhere else. So this is not going to leak information. It's a little bit more secure that way. So we can do this with open file. I'm going to say in, and we're just going to copy what we've got up at the top here. Just paste that down there. I'm going to say let lines be read lines in format t lines. So let's make sure that we actually use a file that does exist. Let's use this file. So you can see here, just evaluating this, we've printed out the entire contents of this file just using this macro that we created here. And we could also have just move this away. And get rid of that let. and we could just as easily do that and print it back out again. So we have gotten rid of 3 lines, just collecting, printing out. We can just print it out just by reading all of the lines in a file using this read lines macro that we have here. So that's all I really wanted to show you in this little video. Macros are considered a bit confusing or a little bit overwhelming if you're not used to it. So whenever I'm going through these tutorials that I'm making and I can find an appropriate place where we might want to write a macro, I'll stop, I'll make a video on it, and I think it'll be useful. I mean, the adage they say is use a macro when a function just won't do. So we really could maybe have written a readlines function. That is also possible, but we, I don't know, maybe a function is the more appropriate thing, but let's have a look at what's being generated. Okay, so let's get rid of that and let's just copy this. So we get all this, which is what this macro completely expands out into. So that with open file, that expands out. So we're not really getting the expansion of our read lines here, unfortunately. That's a shame. Maybe if I do this. Yeah, there we go. That's how I wanted to do this. So you can see that our read lines thing here expands out and returns this form. So I think I'm happy with that being a macro. I might be wrong, but there we go. Super quick video on adding a read lines macro where we'll still get this loop. And I think this is why I'm more tempted to keep it as a macro rather than a function, because I do feel like I want to put that loop in there because it'll be exactly what we want to run anyway, and there's no confusion. This is exactly the code that's being replaced there, being substituted with. We're not passing it through a function call. We are expanding out this read lines into this loop, which I think is really what we want to be doing rather than piping it through a function and putting that onto the stack. I think just substituting that for this is probably the better way to be going. So that's my justification for it. Hope that was interesting. I will see you in the next video.